Well, this is the wild card side of the bracket where one of these teams is guaranteed to be in the final, and two of these games have already taken place, but I wasn't able to bring out my flags previously for it. I made a quick prediction video for Spain versus Russia and Croatia versus Denmark, so I figured I might as well just include them in here just to show, to make it look like a nice evenly sided bracket. From the other video that I made a few days ago for the left side of the bracket. And this is really interesting because we had 7 European teams, 1 South American team. The only non-European team here is Colombia. So it presents a decent pathway for at least 1 European team to be in the final. And a lot of these teams you would never imagine would be in the final. I would say that the favorite one by considerable margin was Spain, and Spain are out. Spain are gone. So you would think, maybe logically speaking, a Croatia or an England, perhaps a Colombia, but really, one of these teams are guaranteed to be in the final very much unexpectedly, because I believe the only 2 teams on this side of the bracket that have been in a World Cup final are Sweden and England. And that's a long time ago. We're talking 1958 and 1966. That really goes to show this is a crazy World Cup. It really is exceptional. So, as you know, my prediction for the Spain-Russia match, I had Russia winning 2-1. Relatively proud of that prediction. They ended up winning 1-1 and 4-3 on penalties. So, this is not a prediction video. This is I bring it out because having just 4 flags here when the other video had 8 flags makes it look kind of awkward. And in the other prediction, I had Croatia beating Denmark 1-0, and it ended up being 1-1 and 3-2 on penalties. Which means we're going to have Russia-Croatia in the quarterfinals, which guarantees one of these teams are going to be in the semifinal. We're going to have an Eastern European semifinalist for the first time since 1998, and that team was, coincidentally enough, Croatia. But that's not a prediction video for this. That's another day. No, the next 2 games that will be decided tomorrow, the last 2 games in the round of 16, are really, in my opinion, the 2 hardest ones to call, and I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if I get both of these predictions incorrect. Would not be surprised. Take your pick. We're going to have a semifinal of Sweden-Colombia, Sweden-England, Switzerland-Colombia, or Switzerland-England. And I would not be surprised if I got both of these games incorrect. So where to begin? Well, Sweden versus Switzerland is the first match of the day, tomorrow. And just to give a brief analysis, man per man, I do think Switzerland are the better team. I was impressed with what I saw in the group stages against Brazil. Steven Zuber getting the equalizer, the only goal that Brazil has conceded in this tournament so far. I think Switzerland are a very solid team, finished with 27 points in qualification. I think, like I said, individually speaking, I think they're the better side. Shaqiri, Gemayli, Ricardo Rodriguez, Haris Seferovic. They've just been a joy to watch. And I've always considered Switzerland a Western European dark horse team that perpetually lives in the shadows of its neighbors in Germany and Italy and France. Switzerland always have the look of a side that can go on a deep run, maybe to a quarterfinal, but they never really quite get there. I believe the only time they've reached the quarterfinals of a World Cup was back in 1954 when they hosted the World Cup. They had a really great opportunity back in 2006 when they lost on penalties to the Ukraine, and Switzerland infamously exited that tournament, being the first ever country in World Cup history to exit a tournament without conceding any goals. But Sweden are a very well-drilled side that stick to a specific blueprint. They are very tactically set up, very well, stifling, absolutely suffocating defense-wise. Jan Andersson, their manager, I talked about him before the World Cup started. I said that the guy is a brilliant tactician. He thoroughly outsmarted Juan Carlos Osorio, the Mexican manager, on the last day of the group stage in Group F. Sweden also has the alleviation of pressure because they've knocked off giants to get where they are. They defeated France in qualifying. They got results against the Netherlands. They're responsible for Italy not being in this tournament. Daily reminder. Italy not being here for the first time since 1958. Coincidentally, that World Cup was hosted in Sweden, so there's another parallel for you. Sweden, very much, they're riding high. This is a confident team. They finally look like they have something going for them after really a decade of not qualifying for the World Cup, as well as 3 consecutive group stage exits in European championships between 2008 and 2016. And I thought it would take time for them to adjust, moving beyond the Zlatan Ibrahimovic era, but it's been like an albatross lifted off their shoulders. It's been liberating in a sense, and Sweden really has a core group of players that are very much a collective effort. They're not, they're not really a star-studded, like I said before, a star-studded Swedish team that we used to see back in the old days, and especially in the 90s and the early to mid-2000s, but they are a team that could find themselves in the final of this World Cup, and that's no joke. Emil Forsberg, Marcus Berg, Augustinsson, these guys, goalkeeper Olsen, they have a really decent crop of players here. And I think Switzerland, actually, this is a bad matchup for Switzerland. A very bad matchup for Switzerland, because Switzerland doesn't really... They struggle with defensive teams. Costa Rica in the group stage, even in some of their games in qualification where they came up against minnows like Andorra and the Faroe Islands, Switzerland eking out narrow victories here and there. Yes, like I said, Switzerland, they topped a qualifying group with 27 points, but it was a really weak qualifying group. And they struggled in their playoffs against Northern Ireland, a team that might have actually beaten Switzerland if not for a controversial penalty call that went in favor for Switzerland, which proved to be the only and decisive goal in that two-legged playoff with Northern Ireland. I honestly think Sweden is one of the worst imaginable opponents that Switzerland could have hoped for in the round of 16, especially with this being a high-stakes, win or go home type of situation. You can expect Sweden to really limit Switzerland going forward. Me personally, which of the 4 teams here would Football Pharaoh like to see in the semifinals? I like Switzerland. I really think that they've got a really good team. They've been re-emerging on the international scene since 2006 because they were gone for a while from 98 and 2002. And Switzerland, they always look like that Western European team that just can't quite break through. They can't quite get there into that upper echelon of the best teams within Western Europe. I think they're entertaining to watch. And they're a true quality side. I would love to see Switzerland be the representative from these 4 teams in the semifinals. I really would. But my prediction for their match against Sweden, I have this being... I'm going to say this is difficult. I'm going with a 1-1, and I think it's going to be a repeat of 2006. I'm going with 1-1 and Sweden to win this on penalties, 4-2. 1-1, Sweden wins on penalties, 4-2. But Sweden being in the quarterfinals, that's very interesting. They're going to be very difficult for whoever comes up against them, and they have the look of a team this year that can take a lot of people by surprise. But I do think Sweden will go through on penalties. Like I said, 1-1 and then 4-2 on penalties. Colombia and England. Well. The Cafeteros and the Three Lions. On paper, I think the winner of this match should be considered favorites over the winner of Sweden-Switzerland, which means the winner of this match should beat the winner of the match that I just predicted, and the winner of this match should get to the semifinals, and quite conceivably even the final. I can see Colombia and England both in the final, actually, of the World Cup. Kind of nuts. In England's case, not really nuts, but very much unexpected. Let's be honest. But this one's the hardest one to call. Of all 8 matches, and it's the last one, too, in addition to that. So, where do I begin? Personally, this match is a toss-up. With a fully fit James Rodriguez. Okay, sorry about that. I had a little bit of a delay. So Colombia and England. This is a really hard one. But like I said, if Colombia has James Rodriguez, who really is responsible for the bulk of their creativity in midfield, I pick Colombia. Now, I don't pick Colombia easily. I mean, it would still be close, but I would pick Colombia. This, though, has the makings of something that is somewhat of a crapshoot, because even though Colombia has depth, and I've said this in previous videos, and I had a conversation with another YouTuber earlier today, and he echoed the same sentiment that Colombia does indeed have depth. And while that's true, James Rodriguez's absence when he went off the other day, when he was substituted off due to injury, it changed Colombia's game plan completely. And the effect that his absence had was almost immediate. And I just think it's probably going to hurt Colombia down the middle of the pitch. Colombia has Muriel, they have Cuadrado, and his pace on the wings is deadly. For me, the standout player for Colombia this World Cup has been Juan Cuadrado, especially the second group game against Poland, where Colombia thrashed the seeded team of their group. Really could have won by an even more emphatic scoreline. And Jerry Mina scoring a couple of goals off the header from a corner. But for the most part, when James Rodriguez is not present, Colombia's creativity is really lacking. It just is. Now, having said that, Colombia, I feel, does have more players that can change a game on a dime, that can have a greater impact on a game and completely switch the narrative of what is unfolding on the pitch relatively quickly than England does. I mean, Radamel Falcao, Quintero, Baca, and if Colombia's defense could hold and if it could neutralize England going forward, specifically that of the threat that Harry Kane poses, Marcus Rashford down the midfield, especially with Ruben Loftus-Cheek, then I think we're in business here. It just all depends, though, because I don't know if James is going to play. So it's really hard to make a prediction because he has such an enormous impact on Colombia's prospects in this game. Colombia does have other outlets. It's just that his lack of a presence is really noticeable for Colombia. And from England's perspective, I don't think they should read too much into the 1-0 loss to Belgium. Both teams fielded what were relatively B teams because both had secured passage to the round of 16. It was just a matter of who would win the group, who would come in second. England got a much tougher opponent in Colombia, I think, than Japan, even though Japan almost pulled off a stunner against Belgium. Probably should have. But anyway, I digress. This game just feels like England's going to eke it out. It feels like England's going to eke this out, and I'm leaning towards a 1-0 for England. Possibly in extra time, but I'm going to go with regular time. I don't think both games tomorrow will go to penalties or extra time. Well, the Sweden-Switzerland game is going to penalties. But I think England will win this in regular time. 1-0. I think Harry Kane will score. And he'll add his 6th goal on and really make himself the favorite for the Golden Boot race. So that's what I'm going with. I'm going with 1-0 for England. I just think that there's really, really not anything separating these two teams. If you were to put Colombia and England in juxtaposition to the other teams in the world, I would rank both Colombia and England somewhere between... I would rank both these teams somewhere between 6th and 10th. They're not top 5 national sides, but they're probably around 6 to 10. Interchangeably. And it all just depends on who's the best on the day. I don't think that there's a clear favorite in this match. There are a few England fans who think that Colombia over England would be an upset. I have to be blunt. I think that's pure madness because I think in recent tournament history, Colombia is a little bit more esteemed. They're a little bit more esteemed than England. I think that at this level, they have, like I said, they have more individual playmakers that can change a game with the snap of a finger. And I mean, I would not consider it an upset if England won at all. Like I said, it's a toss-up. It really is a toss-up. But I'm going for England to get the 1-0 here. I think they will eke it out because I think Colombia will rue James' lack of a presence. It's not really Colombia's fault. I mean, if you're injured, you're injured. But, that's not to say England can't beat Colombia even with James. Of course they can. But I think it's going to be the decider. I really do, unless Colombia can, put in an effort where someone else steps up in his place and has the same kind of influence that James does. But I think England will take advantage of being on this side of the bracket, and they'll get through 1-0. Like I said, 1-0, Harry Kane scores.